Travis Gibbs, and this presentation will be on Arizona's language development approach. First, it is important to define what an English language learner is. And in Arizona is a student who is learning English in addition to their primary language. The EL population breakdown in Arizona is as follows. There are 103,313 EL students, which is 9.2% of all English learners. 42,000 of these students have been in English education prior to being enrolled in the SEI programs provided for Arizona. The most common languages spoken other than English are listed, and they're actually in order, with Spanish being the most and Vietnamese being less, but these are the top 5. An interesting stat to look at is the amount of English learner students that have not reached a proficiency level adequate to join mainstream classrooms. In Arizona, this number focuses on students in ELD programs for more than 5 years, and that makes up about 32% of all English learners in Arizona. Structured English immersion is a response to some court cases that took place in Arizona about the English language development programs that were in place. So the structured English immersion came out of that and was developed as a way to set goals to integrate all English learners into mainstream courses and per federal regulations, have the ELD programs meet grade level standards no matter the alternative language spoken by the student. Language development approach is an organized structure for English development programs to have a certain amount of scaffolding and organization to get students and teachers on the same page so that they can progress to the point where they can be proficient enough to go into mainstream classes. Arizona's LDA focuses on the unique traits of each student that they bring to the school community, including their different language or culture if they happen to have one. All school personnel can help support the development of English learners and demonstrate respect despite a student's English proficiency. The 4 principles of Arizona's language development approach are assess-based behavior and expectations, integrated instruction and disciplinary language and content, targeted and explicit language instruction, and assessment, monitoring, and feedback, which we will go over more in detail in the next few slides. So assessment-based behavior and expectations is addressing the fact that all students and staff should treat English learner students as an important part of the school. The unique cultural makeup of the school community reflects the demographics present in the state, and that way the students can actually feel like they are making up a part of the community of their entire state and able to influence that. Education for all cultures can help create a sense of inclusion in and out of the school community. Not only is it important for students to develop content knowledge and language proficiency, but it is important for the students to develop a sense of autonomy. So this is where integrated instruction comes from. Students develop their content knowledge, their language proficiency in English, or potentially their alternative language if they're in dual immersion, and then a sense of autonomy in their ability to educate themselves or to be motivated just to be educated in general. Target and explicit language and content is addressing the necessity for English language development instruction to provide opportunities to impart students with a value for their academics, and how the language and the key terms related in the language to that content are important in order to communicate and interact with the rest of the academic community and the Arizona community in general. And then looking at assessments, monitoring, and feedback gathering and sharing data is a very important aspect of the integration process. Parents, students, and other school staff can benefit from data that provides insight into the school's language, into a student's language proficiency in order to help determine what programs they should be in and the timeline for their integration. Student agency is one of the overall goals of Arizona's language development approach. These students can be viewed as a member of the school community, and as the students gain confidence in their differences and their ability to succeed, they can be motivated to learn on their own. If a student believes they have the ability to learn and support their community, they can develop a motivation to grow in their academic knowledge so they can make a positive impact as a student and an adult on their community. Both inquiry and project-based learning models provide an opportunity for students to practice their own unique style of problem solving. So both inquiry-based and project-based learning are not necessarily focusing on an end goal product, but on the process, the problem-solving process that each student is using to get there, which promotes creativity and allows students to demonstrate their own unique position in their community. So research-based models are actually what are required by the federal government for something like a structured English immersion program to be based off of. So Arizona has 4 different ones, 3 main and one that is a little more unique based off of parent decisions. But some of the first 2 are here, Newcomer and Pullout. Newcomer is focusing on students that have been in the U.S. for less than 5 years. It usually is pertaining to grades 2 through 12, and they've had some previous formal education in the past, whether that's in English or not. They just have a general formal foundation of academics. The program is focused on reaching grade level standards as well as English development, and this is all happening in the same classroom with other English learners that fall into this newcomer category. Whereas if we move over to the Pullout program, these are students that have had informal English interaction in the past. They maybe have not had an academic understanding. Maybe they use a little bit of English, but they need more of a foundational knowledge. So the program in this program, students will learn the fundamentals with a more intense curriculum than the newcomers. And this is because integrated ELD instruction will happen during one of the other subjects during a mainstream classroom time. So it could be math or social studies or science or potentially language arts. But other than that, they're doing a targeted English development instruction outside of the mainstream classroom for 50 to 60 minutes a day, about an hour. And it's a bit intense. They're trying to integrate them at the time they're in this program. So they're doing a pullout and then going back to mainstream classroom to help them gain a better proficiency compared to the newcomers who are in their own class with other newcomers only. Then there's the 2-hour SEI model. In the 2 hours, students will be pulled out of their mainstream classroom for an additional hour compared to the students in the pull-out program. And this program is designed to provide an expedited curriculum for students with limited proficiency and formal education in the past. Many students fall into this category of students that that have been in an ELD program for more than 5 years. So the state and the districts recognize that these students have not reached the level that they should be, and they need a little more direct focus for English language support. And then that brings us to the 50-50 model, and this is a model that is actually something that parents decide on, and they need to get a waiver signed to be approved for their student to get approved for this program, but it is focusing on an immersion of both English and the student's primary language. So if this is Spanish, the students will have time working in their primary language, but also following one of the other ELD SEI models, most likely the pull-out model, where they will have a little bit of time to focus directly on English, but then also able to learn through their primary language as well in school. And this requires a whole other type of program, a dual immersion program, where the students will have a unique schedule and a unique focus on how their language development will take place. To determine program eligibility, the first step is to determine if the student is learning English as a second language. Once that is determined through the home language survey, which parents are asked if the students learned another language prior to English and if another language is spoken primarily at home. If this is the case, then the students take the Arizona English Language Learner Assessment to figure out where they place in the different SEI programs. And then that is actually used to determine if their proficiency has actually reached a level where they can be integrated into mainstream classrooms, and on what level that can happen. It can determine whether or not they're going to move from one program to the next, from newcomer to pullout. But these assessments are focused on content standards at grade level in English in order to determine their proficiency in English. Assessment accommodations are something that I think in general it just needs to be focused on, that they should have the same accommodations as just as students in general high stakes assessments. They should have small groups, they should have noise buffers, distractions should be limited, and they should have the option to ask questions, to ask for directions to be repeated, and just in general have a positive test taking environment. Another thing to take into account are students that have disabilities. So those students can have different resource specialists there to help them get through the test, to stay focused. If they have different learning disabilities for comprehension, they can try to get support from individuals there. But one of the tools that is not allowed is a text-to-speech tool. And this is because the test is actually assessing whether or not they have a proficiency in the language in reading or speaking. So having a tool that will do that for them kind of negates the purpose of the test. And so it's important to impart on them to do their best, even if they're used to having this tool in their mainstream classrooms before. Next, we're going to talk about parent and guardian legal rights. Parents are ultimately the deciding factor for what type of education their students will have. They need to be notified if their student is going to be taking the second test after the home survey, and then notified after that if they are going to be placed into one of the SEI programs. They actually have the option to withdraw their student from all of these English learner services if that's what they would like. They also can take the option to put their students into the bilingual or dual immersion programs, which is the waiver we talked about for the 50-50 SEI models. The parents can sign and turn that into the school and go through the process to see if that's something that their student would want, which is also another part of their legal rights, which is their right to seek information about all EL services that are offered to their student based off of their proficiency level and what is offered at their specific school.